Hi, this is myan Burton with the Burton Realty Group, and today I'm going to be talking about a common question I get from sellers, which is how can I avoid becoming homeless during that time between selling my home and transitioning into my new home. One of the biggest stressors that sellers have is moving from one home to the next home and not knowing exactly how those timelines are going to line up. You've got to line up the utilities and the movers and the closings between the two homes. And so it could be very disruptive to the family and the routines, not knowing what to expect. There are a number of different things that people have done, and a couple I'm going to suggest that you can look at, along with one that is really ideal in helping you make that transition smoothly. The first one that most people do is they generally pack up all their stuff, put it in a storage unit or in a pod, and then they go stay at their family members or their friends, which is a great way, especially to keep on a budget. If you're budget conscious, that's a great way to save some money and not have to worry about where you're going to live. But it is, again, very disruptive to the family, and it can definitely strain relationships between you and your family members or your friends. So that may or may not be a good option for you. A second option might be to go get an Airbnb or an extended stay hotel, or find a short-term month-to-month lease where you can stay for a short period of time, put all your stuff into a storage unit, and not have to worry about intruding into other space. This option might cost you a little bit more, but you'll have a place you can call your own, and you're not having to worry about intruding into other people's space. The option that I really like is this third option, and that is to do what's called a lease-back or a rent-back from your buyer who just purchased your home. So what does this really mean? It basically means that you're going to rent your house, the home that you've been living in and just sold. You're going to rent that back from that buyer for a period of time. It makes it very simple that you only have to worry about one move as opposed to making multiple moves and putting stuff in storage, and very convenient for that part of it. There are some things, though, that you need to be aware of if you're going to do a lease option that you should work out up front and make sure that all the parties involved are on board. The first thing that you need to do is discuss this with your agent and incorporate that desire into your listing, meaning that you're going to actually advertise on the MLS and everywhere else that you're looking for a buyer who has flexibility where you can actually do a rent back. It'll attract the right type of buyer, somebody who does have that flexibility, and that will allow you to have the same flexibility as you look for your next home. Another thing you need to be aware of as you're working out the lease back with your buyer is that the buyer, if they're doing owner-occupant financing, their lender will require them to take possession of the property no more than 60 days after closing. So you can't stay there for 3 months. You can't stay there for 4 months. You've got basically 60 days max, and probably a few days less than that to actually make that transition. But if you think about it, from the time your buyer makes their offer, and then you have almost 60 days on the back end after closing, you have almost 3 months of time where you could potentially be looking for your home, find the right home, make the offer, get under contract, do all your stuff you need to do, and close, and still be within that 60 days of your close from the sale of your home. So just be aware of that going into that. Another thing you need to think about is your buyer might be concerned about any damage that you cause while you're renting the property back, or might be concerned about taking out appliances or other things that are supposed to remain on the property. They may ask you to put a security deposit down during this period of time. It's very common. You need to be aware of that up front and be prepared for that if that's something that the buyer is concerned about. Put their mind at ease and make that a simple process for you. One of the other things you need to be aware of is how much is that rent going to cost you. There's a lot of different ways to come up with the rental amount between you and the buyer. One might be simply taking the buyer's new monthly payment and prorating it, or using that as your monthly payment for the rent back. Another way might simply be to get the fair market value of the rent for your home and have your agent figure out what that rent amount is and use that as the monthly rent back amount. Another thing you could potentially do is include that rent back amount in the purchase price of the home. So you simply discount the purchase price by the amount of that rent back, and you don't have to worry about the money going back and forth. Or you could even give them a credit at closing for the rent back amount. A lot of different ways to handle that. Talk to your agent, figure out what's going to be best for you. Another thing that you should think about is your homeowner's insurance. You do not want to cancel the homeowner's insurance during that period of time after closing. Keep that in place. Talk to your homeowner's insurance company so that you can keep that policy going and have all your possessions covered. The buyers are going to get insurance to cover the property. You need to be having your possessions covered with your own insurance policy. Finally, you need to have a conversation about who is going to cover the utilities while you are in the property. Majority of the time, that will be you. You'll just keep the utilities in your name, for your gas, your electricity, and your water will stay in your name. But occasionally that will have to transfer to the seller and they'll be responsible. Just make sure the lease agreement that you use specify who is going to be in charge of taking care of those utilities and any HOA payments that may be due during that period of time. The lease back is a great way to satisfy that issue of where are you going to be when you're homeless after you sell your property. It'll give you the flexibility and the time to go find the proper home, not have the stress of having to have a deadline that you have to be out of your house and into your next house, and allow your family to have that same lifestyle and consistency that they're used to as you make this transition to your new home. Hopefully this answers a lot of questions for you and gives you some ideas about how you can structure your move. If you have any additional questions, feel free to give me a call, send me a text or an email. Thanks for watching this video. I look forward to speaking to you soon.